Good morning and welcome to part 2 of Wild at Heart. If you haven't seen part 1, go ahead and you can click on the little button that shows the link to part 1 or in the description or my channel. This won't make any sense if you don't see part 1. With all that out of the way, let's just get straight into it where we left off. Johnny's in his hotel room and he's watching a nature documentary. And it's about hyenas and they're ripping up some animal, eating it. And he just begins barking at the TV because that's the things that the characters do in these movies. They just do things. His barking is interrupted by a phone call, and it is Marietta. And if you recall, I said that things were going a little rough for her, and I would tell you what was happening later. Well, later is right now. And I would like to give a warning of this is the moment where the movie turns into a horror movie, because Marietta is shocking, to say the least. She covered herself in red lipstick, and it is truly horrifying in every conceivable way. So she calls Johnny kind of in a panic because, she's worried that he's dead. But he answers, and she's relieved that he's still alive. So another point for Marietta. She's, at least cares enough that he's still alive, I guess. Got that going for her. She wants to tell Johnny about what she did, but she won't tell him. So she just says, basically, there's something very important I need to tell you, but I can't tell you on the phone. And at this point, this is the middle of the night. She's clearly in a panic. Johnny's kind of freaking out. Like, hey, what's going on? You can tell me, please. I'm a little nervous now. She's like, no, can't tell you. I'm going to tell you in person. I'm flying into New Orleans tomorrow. Wait for me. Johnny says, basically, I can't because Sailor and Lula have left New Orleans and I need to leave as soon as possible so I can catch up to them and stay on their trail. But also, if they've already left, why are you sitting barking at your TV? I don't know, these are questions I guess the writers didn't ask themselves. But she's insisting on him staying and waiting for her so they can talk, despite the fact that all she wants to do is get Lula back. But I guess she wants him to get over a day behind them. Also, he has no clue where they're going, so I don't know how he's supposed to find them now. He caves. He says, fine, I'll wait for you to get to New Orleans and we can talk. After he agrees, they hang up and Marietta just starts throwing up all over the place and just making it even grosser and weirder than it already was. And believe it or not, we've got another reference to the Wizard of Oz. I believe she's supposed to be wearing the shoes of the Wicked Witch lady. I'm pretty sure Marietta's supposed to be the Wicked Witch, I guess. I don't know if they're doing that close of a comparison. It feels that way because, she's just a bad person, but I don't know. We are back with Sailor and Lula driving along. Lula is actually driving right now, and Sailor's sleeping in the back of the car. As Lula's driving, she's looking for something to listen to on the radio, but for some reason, all it is news clips of just people dying and horrible things about humanity. And she eventually just freaks out, pulls over, and just starts screaming at Sailor to find something else on the radio. I guess she doesn't have the ability to do so.
Will you get me some music on that radio this instant? I made it!
I was victim of a sexual assault.
And Sailor finds something. It's their favorite band playing, and they begin dancing in the middle of the desert. And Sailor does this flip out of the car. It was actually pretty cool. I hope it was Nicolas Cage doing it and not a stunt double or something like that. And then they just start dancing it out, and we get to see Nicolas Cage's awesome dance moves again. So, honestly, great scene. Then we go to Marietta and Johnny's dinner that they have. Marietta's now in New Orleans, and they're eating dinner, and Johnny's basically been waiting all day to figure out what is wrong, what is the problem, and No, this is the scene where you think, oh my gosh, Marietta can actually be a person and be like, hey, I made this mistake. I'm sorry. Let's try to fix it or something. But no. So Johnny basically says, all right, so what's the problem? And she's about to tell him that Santos is trying to kill him, but then she's like, never mind, nothing's wrong. All of that, she flew all the way to New Orleans just to be like, nah, never mind, I was just freaking out for no reason. And Johnny, being the great private detective that he is, asks her, again, does Santos have something to do with this? And Marietta denies it, not only denying it, then gaslights him once again into apologizing for asking if Santos was involved.
Honey, I have to ask you something.
Okay.
Is Santos involved in this in any way?
Hell no. You think that I would do something like that without coming to talk to you first?
I'm sorry.
Johnny, honestly, is a really good guy and does not deserve anything that's happened to him in this movie, especially what's going to happen to him in this movie. We are back with Sailor and Lula. Sailor's driving now, and he decides this is the time to come clean to Lula and tell her that he was actually a driver for Marcelo Santos and actually, unknowingly at the time, witnessed the murder of her father. Can't remember if I've mentioned this, but yeah, Santos and Marietta killed Lula's father. They lit him on fire, and Sailor drove Santos to the house and witnessed him kill Lula's father. Lula just kind of stares out the window, and believe it or not, she just sees a witch on a broom go by, so add another one to the Wizard of Oz counter. Our power couple are briefly interrupted to show the unfortunate and untimely demise of Johnny. Probably the only character you could have rooted for in the whole movie has now been killed because of his girlfriend. Man, Johnny did not deserve to go out like that. Alright, I'll be honest, this next scene almost made me want to give up on this video. Because it's so confusing and hard to explain, but I'm going to try my best. Sorry if this makes no sense. Okay, so after dinner, Johnny and Marietta said they would meet in the lobby so they could go looking for Lula together. When Marietta gets down to the lobby, Johnny doesn't meet her, and she is just freaking out at this hotel employee.
I don't understand this, not just one tiny bit. See, he told me to come down here to wait for him in that lobby there, that he'd meet me in the lobby. And what I feel is just that something terrible has happened to him.
And another employee for the hotel comes and goes, sorry ma'am, I overlooked this note for you from Johnny. The note says, I'm gone fishing and buffalo hunting. And rather than Marietta thinking, something's happened to Johnny, she believes the note. We know Johnny's dead, but she believes that he abandoned her for some reason out of the blue. And it's not until Marcelo Santos just appears out of the shadows that she puts two and two together and realizes that something's probably happened to Johnny. So she starts freaking out.
Marietta!
And Marcelo Santos tells the hotel employees to leave them alone. And they do.
Gentlemen, I'd like to take this opportunity to ask you, please, clear out.
How rude.
Me too?
Yeah, you too.
This obviously evil-looking guy appears out of the shadows out of nowhere. This woman freaks out because of it, and the hotel employees are like, alright, we'll just leave her with him. It makes no sense. Marietta then asks Marcelo Santos, did you hurt Johnny? And he says, no, I didn't. And she believes him. The murderer, who said he was going to kill Johnny, appears out of the shadows in your hotel. Johnny went missing for some reason. You have no idea where he is. And the guy who said he was going to kill him is there. But he says he didn't do it. And you're just like, okay. How? Truly, what is wrong with this woman? I have so many questions about this scene. Why does the hotel manager have crutches? Also, what was the old guy in the cane doing in the background? What was that about? Then why did the other employee look like he saw a ghost and back away, like he was in a horror movie? Why buffalo hunting? I actually did the research. There aren't even buffalo in Louisiana. Why would they put buffalo hunting there? Why would the hotel staff leave Marietta with the most stereotypical looking villain of all time? They just saw this guy appear out of the shadows, she freaks out, and they're just like, alright, we can trust her with him. And finally, why does Marietta believe Santos that he didn't hurt Johnny? Why? She has no reason to trust that he didn't hurt Johnny. This movie is so frustrating sometimes. Sailor and Lula arrive to Big Tuna, Texas, which unfortunately, after some research, is not a real place, believe it or not. So they just came up with Big Tuna out of nowhere. Now, you're all probably wondering the same thing. Going to Texas is way out of their way to trying to get to California, and Lula actually makes the same observation. Sailor went there for a reason. Remember that house in part 1 I told you that would be important later? This one? Yeah. They are going to visit that house. So Sailor goes to the house and talks to the woman that lives there. And he asks her, hey, is there a contract out on me? I guess they were friends once and they promised to look out for each other. Well, I guess this promise didn't really work out for Sailor because this is the person who has been contracted to kill him. And she obviously just says, nope, there's no contract out for you. So this gives Sailor some reassurance that he is safe and there's not a contract out for him, when in fact the person who gave him that reassurance is the one who's been contracted to kill him. So, unlucky there, bud. Double unlucky, which is now Lula's not feeling great and wants to stay in Big Tuna for a while till she feels better for some reason. I mean, I get you don't feel good, but Big Tuna, Texas is where you're going to feel better? As they're discussing staying in Big Tuna till Lula feels better, there's random witch laughter, so another Wizard of Oz reference. That night, they're in the common area of the motel, and they're meeting the great people of Big Tuna, Texas. One of which is an interesting fellow who is explaining something about his dog. I'll just let him explain it.
Dog barks some. Mentally, you picture my dog, but I have not told you the type dog which I have. Perhaps you might even picture Toto from The Wizard of Oz. But I can tell you, my dog is always with me.
And yes, that was another reference to The Wizard of Oz. Go ahead and throw it on the old counter. And just when I couldn't think this movie gets any weirder, we are introduced to a new character. Bobby Peru, played by the great William Dafoe. Now, if Marcelo Santos isn't the most obvious villain of all time, Bobby Peru is. This guy's got gross teeth. He is a certified creep from the second he gets there. Just everything about him. Clearly a bad guy. After seeing Bobby Peru, Lula's sickness gets multiplied by 10,000. Who can blame her? So she asks Sailor to go back to bed. After they leave the little get-together, Lula has some news to tell Sailor. After all the bareback horse riding that they've been doing, believe it or not, Lula got pregnant. And in response, Sailor lights 2 cigarettes at the same time and smokes both of them. And, of course, while they're talking about their feelings on Lula being pregnant, we hear witch laughter, and Lula says something about the yellow brick road. So that is another 2 Wizard of Oz references for you. If you were thinking, hey, I haven't felt uncomfortable enough because of this movie, well, don't worry. Good old Bobby Peru is here for you. Lula's alone in the motel room when there's a knock at the door, and it's Bobby Peru. She opens the door, and he just lets himself in. He says he's got to take a piss. He says this.
I gotta take a piss, man. Can I use your head?
Yeah, I guess.
I don't mean your head. I'm not gonna piss on your head, your hair and all. Just gonna piss in the toilet. Y'all take a listen. You hear a deep sound coming down from Bobby Peru.
Also, while he's peeing, he doesn't close the door, and he doesn't flush the toilet after he's done. So that's really gonna help with the smell in the motel room for sure. He then begins flirting with Lula, which then turns into harassing Lula, which then turns into assaulting Lula. And after he had a quick grope on her, he leaves. And Lula is obviously very upset by all this, as she should. But then she begins clicking her heels together, just like you guessed it, in The Wizard of Oz. After harassing and assaulting Lula, Bobby goes and talks to Sailor, and they go get a drink together. While they're there, Bobby shares a plan for an armed robbery with Sailor. And Sailor at first is very much against this. But Bobby's trying to convince him and says that this kind of money would be very helpful for a family. And Sailor is very concerned that Bobby knows Lula's pregnant and is basically like, wait, what, Lula told you? And Bobby responds with this.
I talked to her this afternoon. When you was out.
I don't know about you, but to me, that sounds like a major red flag for a guy who's already a walking red flag. Somehow, Bobby starts convincing Sailor to go through with it. And as they're doing this, the scene turns into them in a crystal ball. And then Sailor says something about how this kind of money would help a family get down the yellow brick road. So that's another 2 Wizard of the Oz references right there for you. So Sailor is convinced, agrees to do this plan with Bobby, and Bobby assures Sailor that no one will get hurt. In this next scene, not much happens. Lula says she wants to leave Big Tuna, and she also mentions that Bobby Peru cannot be trusted. We do also have a roll credits moment.
This whole world's wild at heart and weird on top.
And of course, Lula mentions that she would like to be somewhere over the rainbow, so yet another Wizard of Oz reference. Next, we are shown the inside of the important house of the person who's been contracted to kill Sailor. And believe it or not, guess who shows up? Bobby Peru. I know. The twist of the movie. Bobby Peru was a bad guy the whole time. I mean, what could have given it away other than his teeth, his voice, his hair, his all-black clothes, the fact that he assaulted Lula, and the fact that he's played by William Dafoe, one of the greatest villain actors of all time. Other than all those things, how could we have ever known that Bobby Peru was a bad guy the whole time? After we see all of that, we see Sailor waiting for Bobby Peru to commit the robbery. And I'll just be honest, any sympathies that I had for Sailor and his situation, out the window after this scene. This guy is just straight up an idiot. Like, genuinely stupid. There's no other way to put it, I'm sorry. He's just stupid. So, he's having second thoughts. Basically, he's literally asking himself, like, why am I doing this? I shouldn't do this. You know, maybe the fact that Lula just out of nowhere was like, hey, that Bobby Peru guy, don't trust him, as he's in the middle of trusting him to go on an armed robbery with him. And I think all of this is starting to get to him, and he's having second thoughts. And he's about to back out, but that's when the car pulls up with Bobby Peru. But it's not just Bobby Peru. It's the girl from the house that Sailor knows is with him. And Sailor immediately is like, well, what the hell are you doing here? Well, this is weird. And they're just like, we know each other. And Sailor still gets in the car. I mean, think about this for a minute. The girl he knows is connected to the criminal organization that he thinks is currently trying to kill him. Is randomly connected to the guy he randomly meets at a motel, who also just so happens to be hatching a robbery that he randomly invites him on. They know each other. She's also there for the robbery. And he's concerned by this, but he still gets in the car. He still gets in. I mean, this guy is an idiot. Obviously they're working together. Obviously they're gonna kill him. But he just goes along with it. So, despite all the red flags... No. Not red flags. Billboards. Signs that say, Sailor, don't do this. This is a horrible decision. Despite all that, the robbery continues. And the robbery is fascinating. I don't know what else to say. I'll just show you.
Get that mask on!
Keep it revving, Chiquita. We'll be right back.
Nobody's gonna get hurt. Remember that.
That's right, partner.
Uniform boys! Get in the back! Get in the back! Now, both of you! Anyone comes in, hurt back here quick! All right. All right, now, boys, let's make this nice and easy.
You waiting for somebody, miss?
Let's go! Say cheese.
Stay put.
Cool it, man!
You're next, fucker.
God! God!
Those are dummies.
Dummy. Okay. Why don't you step up here, hotshot? I'll slap that smile right off your face.
Oh. Okay.
Stop, you sons of bitches! This is the police! Hold it or I'll shoot!
Your hands behind your head, cowboy!
Lula, I really let you down this time.
I mean, this movie's been all over the place. But, I mean, that robbery scene was just a complete 180. I mean, so Bobby was, kind of like this, I guess, smooth villain kind of guy. He goes from that just completely unhinged, just maniac in the eyes. I mean, William Dafoe does a great job of that, so that was entertaining. And Sailor goes from, like, a bad Elvis impersonator to Nick Cage just going batshit crazy, which, honestly, I will never complain about. And once again, Sailor gets arrested and sent to jail, this time for robbery. While Lula's at the jail for Sailor, her mom, Marietta, shows up along with Marcelo Santos. And during the reunion, this happens.
Worried about you, honey. Me too. Can you give your old friend Stannis a hug?
Could you imagine someone reacting that way when you hug them and you continue hugging them? It's just absolutely crazy to me. So Sailor gets just under 6 years of prison. Yes, you heard me right. For the armed robbery where 2 people were shot, it's shown I think they live, but I would be surprised if they did. One of them had to have died. Also, a cop was assaulted. Someone else died, Bobby Peru. And he doesn't even get 6 years in prison. Armed robbery alone, without anyone being shot, carries a sentence of 5 to 99 years. And Sailor's a repeat offender because of, remember, the manslaughter that he was convicted of. He also skipped out on his parole. All of that happens, and he doesn't even get 6 years in prison. That's insane to me. So, Sailor's prison time is up, and he gets out, and Lula waited for him, and she's there with their child to pick him up. And I know what you're thinking, do not worry, Sailor still has a snakeskin jacket. That's okay. He reunites with his family, and he gives his son a stuffed toy lion. Now, I'm sure you're wondering, why am I mentioning that? Well, that's not getting past me. That's a Wizard of Oz reference. That's the Cowardly Lion. That's not slipping past me. I caught that one. And they decide they're going to go get something to eat. Well, as they're driving there, Lula just stops and kind of has a panic attack. And Sailor's solution to this is to leave his family. Basically just like, you know what, this was a bad idea, bye. And these are his last words to his son.
Oye, amigo. If ever something don't feel right to you, remember what Pancho said to the Cisco Kid. Let's win before we're dancing at the end of a rope without music.
I mean, get that man a #1 dad t-shirt. So now Sailor is walking back to the train station. But as he's walking through the empty road, all of a sudden, from all sides of the road, in front of him, behind him, everywhere, this group of men surround him. And you're all thinking, oh man, Marcelo Santos' gang finally caught up to him. This is going to be a tragic ending. Nope. This is just some random gang of guys who stand across the street from each other waiting for someone to walk down this road, I guess? I have no idea. So they surround Sailor, and Sailor calls them all a slur that I would be kicked off of YouTube if I said. So they then beat the crap out of him and knock him out. Well, as Sailor is knocked out, and of course this is how this movie comes to an end, he sees the Good Witch from The Wizard of Oz, and she's trying to convince him that he needs to go back to Lula. Now he does put up a counter-argument.
Luna loves you.
But I'm a robber and a manslaughterer, and I haven't had any parental guidance.
She's forgiven you all these things. You love her. Don't be afraid, Sailor.
But I'm wild at heart.
Roll credits. But in the end, she convinces him that he needs to be with Lula. And he gets up to this now very confused group of men. I don't know, could they see the witch, or was this all in his head? At this point, I truly don't know. But they did seem confused. He then says this.
Had enough, asshole?
Yes, I have. And I want to apologize to you gentlemen for referring to you as homosexuals. I also want to thank you, fellas. You've taught me a valuable lesson in life.
And then they just let him run off, I guess? I don't know. I'm confused by the motivations of this gang. Do they just patrol this one road, and if anyone walks down there, they're gonna get it? I don't know, it was very strange. So I know what you're thinking. Well, how is he gonna catch Lula by running? She's in a car driving away from him. Well, luckily, despite the fact that there have been literally 0 cars shown on the road up to this point, there's just this massive traffic jam. So Sailor jumps from car to car trying to find Lula, and when he finds her, he very romantically jumps on her hood and is basically just like, I want to be with you. He also has this horrible prosthetic nose on for some reason, and he sings Love Me Tender, which Nicolas Cage, once again, just kills this musical number. And they live happily ever after, and that's the end of the movie. So, this movie was based off a book, and I have no clue what the book was like. Reading's difficult for me. But it got good reviews. I mean, it's got a 65 critic review and an 81 audience review. And it had a budget of 10 million and made 14 million, so made some money. But honestly, without Nicolas Cage, this movie's unwatchable. He carried this movie. And honestly, I've watched it many times for this video, and I've enjoyed watching it every time. It is an entertaining movie, but it's not a good movie. So with that being said, I think this is quite obviously a so bad it's good movie. I think this is just a textbook example of it, from the over-the-top acting to the constant references to The Wizard of Oz, which I'm sure I missed some in there. I mean, this movie's just so all over the place. And there is some subplots and side characters that I didn't even get into, like with the whole criminal organization, just because this video was already way too long, and that stuff was just so completely off the wall, I just had to cut it out. But yeah, so those are my final thoughts on the movie. Maybe one day I'll do a part 3 where I dive into some of the bonus content that I have on the DVD. But for now, I definitely need a break from this movie. But yeah, that is it. Thank you for watching. I will see you in the next part of me watching every Nicolas Cage movie. See ya.